The sky turned black at noon. Not from clouds or storms, but from ships. Thousands of them. They blocked the sun like a swarm of insects, and Jinho knew in that moment that his peaceful life was over. He stood on the hill behind his farm, watching the capital city in the distance. Bright flashes of light appeared across the skyline. Explosions. The Valori had come without warning, without mercy, without any chance for negotiation. They simply arrived and began killing. Jinho was 63 years old. His bones ached in the morning. His hair had turned white years ago. He had retired from military engineering 2 decades past, wanting nothing more than to grow vegetables and watch his grandson grow tall. The war does not care about the plans of old men. His communication device buzzed. It was his daughter Yuna, and her voice was filled with fear. "Father, we are trapped," she said. The building collapsed. "Minsu is with me. We cannot get out." Jinho gripped the device tightly. His grandson Minsu was only 14. "A child. Where are you?" he asked. "The science building. East side of the city." "Father, the Valori are everywhere. They are taking people." The line went dead. Jinho looked at the burning city. Between him and his family stood an army of alien monsters. The Valori were insect-like creatures, tall and covered in hard shells. They did not conquer planets for resources or land. They conquered because their queen demanded it. She had ruled for 1,000 years, and in that time, she had never lost a war. The old man walked back to his farmhouse. Inside, he opened a locked cabinet that he had not touched in 20 years. Tools, engineering equipment, military designs from his younger days. He began to pack. In the capital, colony leader Sujin stood in the emergency bunker, surrounded by scared officials. The Planetary Defense Force had lasted exactly 47 minutes. 47 minutes against an empire that had destroyed hundreds of worlds. "Send the distress signal," she ordered. "Send it to everyone. The Coalition, the Trade Federation, anyone who will listen." A young officer shook his head. "Leader Sujin, the Coalition has already responded. They said Corinth Prime is too far from their defensive lines. They cannot help us." Sujin closed her eyes. 300 years ago, her ancestors had left Earth to build a new home among the stars. They had created farms, cities, universities. They had raised children and buried grandparents. And now, in less than one day, all of it would be erased. "Send the signal anyway," she said. "Send it to Earth. Maybe they will care about their own kind." The officer hesitated. Earth is not part of the Galactic War. They are classified as a minor species. They have no fleet, no army capable of "send it." Above the planet, Queen Mirathel watched the conquest from her throne ship. She was ancient, her body sustained by technology and the life force of her countless children. Her eyes saw through the eyes of every soldier below. Her mind touched the mind of every drone. The humans were dying well, she thought. Some ran, some fought. Some simply stood still, frozen by fear. It did not matter. The result was always the same. Her advisor approached. "My queen, the planet will be fully secured within 6 hours. Resistance is minimal." "Minimal," she repeated. "Not zero?" "Small pockets. Nothing significant. Farmers with hunting weapons. They will be dealt with." Mirathel nodded slowly. She had heard this report 1,000 times on 1,000 worlds. Resistance was always minimal. Resistance always failed. "Broadcast my message," she commanded. Her voice echoed across every surviving communication device on the planet. "People of this world, your conquest is complete. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift. Resist, and your suffering will span generations. I have broken empires older than your species. I have crushed civilizations that thought themselves eternal. You are nothing. Accept this truth. In a collapsed building on the east side of the capital, Yuna held her son close. Minsu was trying hard not to cry. He was 14, old enough to understand what was happening, young enough to be terrified. "Mom," he whispered, "are we going to die?" Yuna did not answer. She could not lie to him. Instead, she just held him tighter and listened to the sounds of destruction outside. Jinho reached the edge of the city by nightfall. The streets were filled with bodies. Human bodies. He forced himself not to look at their faces. He could not afford to feel grief. Not yet. He moved through the shadows, using skills he thought he had forgotten. Once, long ago, he had been a soldier. He had built weapons and broken enemy machines. That man had been buried under years of peaceful farming. But he was still there, somewhere inside. He found the science building just before midnight. Half of it had collapsed, but he could see light coming from inside. Someone had built a fire. Yuna. He called out as loud as he dared. A moment of silence. Then his daughter's voice, weak but alive. "Father? Father, we are here." It took him 3 hours to dig them out. His hands bled from moving broken concrete. His back screamed in pain. But when Minsu crawled out of that hole, alive and whole, Jinho felt something he had not felt in 20 years. Purpose. "We cannot stay here," he told them. "We go to the mountains. I know caves there. We hide, we survive, and we plan." Yuna looked at her father with confusion. Plan for what? "The war is over. We lost." Jinho helped Minsu stand. The boy was covered in dust but unharmed. "The war is not over," the old man said. "It has only just begun. They think we are beaten because they destroyed our buildings and killed our soldiers. But buildings can be rebuilt. Soldiers can be made from farmers. We are still alive, daughter. And as long as we live, we fight." They disappeared into the darkness. 3 survivors among thousands who would soon join them dot far away, beyond the stars. The distress signal reached a small monitoring station on the edge of Earth's solar system. A young officer listened to the recording 3 times. Korean colonists. Valori invasion. Complete destruction. He forwarded the message to Earth Command with a simple note. "Our people are dying." The next morning, Captain Taeyan sat in his quarters, reading the report. He had served in the military for 15 years. He had trained for wars that never came. And now, for the first time, humans were being slaughtered, and no one was doing anything about it. He requested permission to respond. The answer came within an hour. Denied. Humanity was not ready for a galactic war. Taeyan read the rejection twice. Then he walked to the hangar bay, where a stealth shuttle sat waiting for maintenance. He climbed inside, activated the engines, and launched into space before anyone could stop him. One man. One small ship. Flying toward an army of billions. It was not enough. It could not possibly be enough. But Taeyan did not care about mathematics or probability. He cared about one simple truth. His people were dying, and he would not let them die alone. Taeyan flew for 11 days. He slept in short bursts, ate military rations that tasted like cardboard, and listened to the silence of space. Every few hours, he checked the communication channels. Earth Command had declared him a deserter. They sent messages ordering him to return. He deleted them all. On the 8th day, he intercepted a Valori broadcast. The Queen was announcing her victory. Corinth Prime had been pacified. The human population was being processed. Taehyung did not know what processed meant, but he could guess. He pushed his engines harder. Meanwhile, in the mountains of Corinth Prime, Jinho had gathered survivors. They came in small groups, stumbling through the forests, carrying children and wounded family members. By the end of the first week, There were nearly 200 people hiding in the caves. They had almost nothing. Some food, some water, a few hunting weapons, blankets and medical supplies stolen from destroyed buildings. It was not enough to survive. It was certainly not enough to fight, but Jinho did not care about what they lacked. He cared about what they had. People. Living, breathing people who refused to die quietly. He organized them quickly. The young and healthy would gather supplies. The old and wounded would care for children. Everyone else would learn. Learn to move silently. Learn to hide. Learn to kill. "You cannot be serious," said a man named Dongwu, who had been a teacher before the invasion. "We are farmers and shopkeepers. They are an army that has conquered half the galaxy. What can we possibly do?" "We can make them bleed," Jinho replied. "We can slow them down. We can show them that this planet will cost them more than they expected. And then what? We all die anyway." Jinho looked at the man with cold eyes. "Everyone dies, teacher. The question is whether you die on your knees or on your feet." Yuna spent her days studying the enemy. Before the invasion, she had been a xenobiologist, researching alien life forms. Now she used that knowledge for war. The Valori were fascinating creatures. They operated as a hive mind, with the Queen controlling millions of soldiers through a complex system of pheromone signals. Each soldier was connected to the whole, receiving orders and sharing information instantly. This was their greatest strength. It was also, Yuna realized, their greatest weakness. "If we disrupt the pheromone signals," she explained to her father, "the soldiers become confused. They cannot communicate. They cannot coordinate. They become individual creatures instead of parts of a whole." Jinho understood immediately. "Can you build something that disrupts the signals?" "Maybe. I need equipment, chemicals, things I cannot find in a cave. Then we find them somewhere else." The first raid happened 3 weeks after the invasion. 12 volunteers, armed with knives and farming tools, attacked a Valori supply depot in the middle of the night. They killed 6 guards, stole everything they could carry, and disappeared before reinforcements arrived. 3 humans died in the attack. But for the first time, so did Valori soldiers. And news of the raid spread through the caves like fire. Queen Marithel received the report with mild annoyance. 9 soldiers lost. 9 out of millions. It meant nothing, except that it should not have happened at all. "Explain," she commanded. Her advisor bowed low. "The humans attacked a small depot. They used primitive weapons. They fled before we could respond. Humans are supposed to be broken. They surrender. They beg. They do not attack. Most of them have surrendered, my queen. These are just a small group hiding in the mountains. We will find them soon." Marithel waved her hand dismissively. She had more important things to consider. The next system was already being prepared for invasion. Corinth Prime was a conquered world. Its fate was sealed. Taehin arrived on the planet's surface during an asteroid shower. Thousands of rocks burned through the atmosphere, creating a storm of fire and light. His small shuttle slipped through the chaos undetected and landed in a forest. 50 kilometers from the nearest Valori base. He buried the shuttle under branches and dirt. Then he began walking. It took him 3 days to find the resistance. Or rather, they found him. He was crossing a river when a young boy appeared on the opposite bank, holding a homemade crossbow aimed at his chest. "Who are you?" the boy demanded. Taeyan raised his hand slowly. "My name is Taeyan. I am human. I came from Earth." The boy did not lower his weapon. "Earth sent you?" "No, Earth did not send anyone. I came alone." Confusion crossed the boy's face. Why? Taeyan thought about the question. There were many answers he could give. Duty, honor, patriotism, but none of them felt true. The truth was simpler and harder to explain. Because you needed help, he said finally. And no one else was coming. The boy led him to the caves. Along the way, Taeyeon counted the survivors. Children with hollow eyes. Adults with bandaged wounds. Old people who should have been resting, but were carrying water instead. Maybe 500 people total. Against an army of billions, Jin-ho met him at the entrance. The old man studied him carefully, taking in his military uniform, his posture, his eyes. Earth Command sent you? Jin-ho asked. Earth Command tried to stop me. A small smile crossed Jin-ho's face. Then you are either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. They sat together in a small chamber deep in the caves. Yuna was there, along with a dozen others who had become informal leaders. Taeyeon told them everything. Earth's refusal to help. The coalition's abandonment. The fact that no fleet was coming to save them. When he finished, silence filled the cave. So we are alone, Dongwoo said. Yes, Taeyeon admitted. You are alone. But that does not mean you are helpless. He began to explain. Not tactics. Not strategy. Something more basic. He explained what humans were. The Valori have conquered hundreds of species, he said. Species with better technology, larger armies, more resources. Do you know why they always win? No one answered. Because their victims fight the same way every time. They build walls. They defend positions. They try to match strength with strength. And they lose. He leaned forward. Humans do not fight like that. We are small and weak. We live short lives. We have always been surrounded by things that wanted to kill us. So we learn to fight differently. We learn to be patient. We learn to be cruel. We learn that victory does not come from one big battle. It comes from 1,000 small wounds that never stop bleeding. Yuna spoke. You want us to hurt them slowly. I want you to make them afraid. I want every Valori soldier on this planet to wonder if today is the day they die. I want them to sleep badly. I want them to jump at shadows. I want them to hate being here so much that their queen has to choose between abandoning the planet and pouring more resources into holding it. And if she pours in more resources? Jin-ho asked. Taeyeon smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then we make those resources bleed too. Outside the caves, the Valori continued their occupation. They processed prisoners. They stripped resources. They built permanent bases. They did not know that in the mountains above them, something was changing. Farmers were becoming soldiers. Fear was becoming anger. And a single human had just given them the most dangerous gift of all. Hope. Queen Marithel received a report that night. Her soldiers had found the crashed remains of a small spacecraft in the forest. Human design. It had arrived recently. One ship, her advisor said. One pilot. Probably dead. The queen dismissed it without concern. One human meant nothing. What could one human possibly do against her empire? She would learn the answer soon enough. The first lesson Taeyeon taught them was patience. The Valori expect you to attack their strong points, he explained to a group of 30 volunteers. They have fortified bases, armored vehicles, thousands of soldiers. If you attack these things, you will die. He drew a simple map in the dirt. So you do not attack these things. You attack everything else. Supply lines, communication towers, individual soldiers walking alone. You attack what is weak. You attack what is unprotected. And then you disappear. The volunteers learned quickly. They had no choice. Those who learned slowly did not survive. Within a month, the resistance had grown to 800 people. They struck at night, in the early morning, during storms. They planted traps on roads. They poisoned water supplies. They killed soldiers and took their weapons. Every attack was small. Every attack was painful. The Valari began to respond. They sent patrols into the mountains. They burned forests. They took hostages from surviving civilian populations and threatened to execute them if the attacks continued. Jinho called a meeting. "They have our people," said a woman named Hana, who had lost her husband in the first attack. "They will kill them. They will kill them anyway," Jinho replied. "The Valari do not keep prisoners. They keep resources. When our people are no longer useful, they will be processed. Then what do? Jinho looked at Taeyeon. The younger man understood. "We rescue them," Taeyeon said, "and we make the Valori regret ever touching them." The raid on Processing Center 7 became legend. 40 volunteers attacked a facility holding 300 prisoners. They used Yuna's prototype pheromone disruptor for the first time, broadcasting a signal that confused the guards and broke their coordination. The result was chaos. Valori soldiers stumbled into each other, unable to communicate. Some attacked their own kind. Others simply stood still, waiting for orders that never came. Taeyeon led the assault personally. He moved through the facility like a ghost, killing quickly and quietly. Behind him came farmers with stolen weapons, teachers with improvised explosives, children carrying medical supplies. They freed 263 prisoners. They lost 18 of their own, and they burned the processing center to the ground before disappearing into the night. Queen Marathel received the report with growing frustration. Another facility destroyed. Another group of prisoners escaped. Another 100 soldiers dead. "This is impossible," she declared. "No conquered species behaves this way." Her advisor hesitated. "My queen, the attacks seem to be organized by a single individual. A human who arrived from outside the system. One human?" "Yes. Our surviving soldiers describe him as extremely dangerous. He appears to be teaching the colonists how to fight." The queen leaned forward on her throne. "Tell me about humans." The advisor accessed the ancient records. The entry was brief and dismissive. Humans were a young species from a small planet. They had achieved interstellar travel only recently. They were physically weak, short-lived, and emotional. They had no significant military capability. Threat assessment, minimal. Minimal, the queen repeated. And yet, this one human is causing more damage than the entire planetary defense force. Perhaps the records are incomplete, my queen. Perhaps. She considered the situation. Double the patrols. Burn the mountains if necessary. Find this human and bring him to me alive. I want to understand what makes him different. In the caves, Taeyeon was teaching his second lesson, hatred. Anger is useful, he told the gathered fighters. But hatred is better. Anger fades. Hatred endures. Remember what they did to your homes. Remember what they did to your families. Hold that memory close and never let it go. Young Minsu sat in the front row, listening carefully. He was only 14, too young to fight according to the rules they had established. But rules were becoming flexible. Everyone was needed. I want to help, Minsu told his grandfather later. I can fight. Jinho looked at his grandson. The boy had grown in the past months. His eyes were harder. His hands were steadier. The child who had cried in the collapsed building was gone, replaced by something older and colder. You are too young, Jinho said. There are children younger than me carrying water and bandaging wounds. Why can I not do more? Because I want to protect you, Jinho thought. Because you are all I have left. Because when I look at you, I still see the baby I held in my arms 14 years ago. But he did not say these things. Instead, he said, what would you do? Minsu had clearly thought about this. I know the ventilation systems in the city. Before the invasion, I used to explore them with my friends. I know how to move through them without being seen. I can go places adults cannot fit. Jinho felt his heart break a little. His grandson wanted to become a spy, a saboteur, a killer. And the worst part was that they needed him. Talk to Taeyun, he said finally. He will decide. Taeyun trained Minsu personally. The boy learned fast. Within weeks, he was conducting solo missions into occupied territory, gathering intelligence and planting disruption devices. He was small, quiet, and invisible. His greatest mission came on a cold night in winter. A processing center on the edge of the city held 47 children, rounded up from the remaining civilian population. The Valori were preparing to transport them. Off-world. Minsu entered through a ventilation shaft no wider than his shoulders. He crawled for 2 hours in complete darkness, navigating by memory and touch. When he reached the holding area, he found 12 guards watching the children. He waited until they changed shifts. In a moment of confusion, he opened the emergency exit. Then he led 12 children through the shaft, one by one, while the others distracted the guards with noise and movement. It took 6 hours. 6 hours of crawling, of silencing crying children, of freezing in place when guards walked overhead. When they finally emerged in the forest outside the city, Minsu collapsed from exhaustion. But 12 children were free. 12 children who would have been lost forever. News of the rescue spread quickly. The resistance grew to 3,000, then 5,000, then 8,000. People emerged from hiding, from basements, from scattered farms. They had heard the stories. A human soldier had come. Farmers were fighting back. Children were being saved. Hope was alive. The Galactic Coalition received reports from their observers. The situation on Corinth Prime had changed. Against all probability, against all logic, a single human had turned a conquered population into a fighting force. The Valori advance had stalled. "This is unprecedented," said a coalition admiral during an emergency meeting. "The Valori have never been delayed by a ground resistance." "One human," said another official. "One human did this." What would happen if more humans joined the war? No one had an answer. On Corinth Prime, Taeyun stood on a mountain ridge, looking down at the occupied city. Fires burned in several districts. Explosions echoed through the night. His people were fighting. Yuna joined him. She had refined the pheromone disruptor, making it smaller and more powerful. Soon, every fighter would carry one. "The Queen is sending more soldiers," she said. "Our scouts counted 30 new ships in orbit." Taeyun nodded. "Good. Good? How is that good?" He turned to face her. His eyes were calm, almost peaceful. "Every soldier she sends here is a soldier not attacking another world. Every resource she spends on us is a resource not spent on expansion. We are bleeding her slowly, Yuna, death by 1,000 cuts. And when she decides to simply destroy the planet, then we make sure the galaxy knows what happened here. We make sure every species sees what a few thousand farmers did to the mighty Valori Empire. We become a symbol." Yuna was quiet for a moment. "You knew from the beginning, did you not? You knew we could not win." "I knew we could not lose," Taeyun corrected. "Victory is not about surviving, Yuna. Victory is about being remembered. And they will remember us. I promise you that." Far away, Earth Command received a new report. Corinth Prime was still fighting. The impossible was happening. And for the first time, humanity began to consider a question it had long avoided. What if they joined the war? 8 months had passed since the invasion. 8 months of war, death, and something the Valori had never experienced before. Defeat, not total defeat. The Queen still controlled most of the planet. Her soldiers still numbered in the hundreds of thousands. But the resistance had grown from a handful of survivors to 30,000 fighters spread across mountains, forests, and underground tunnels. And they were not just surviving. They were winning. The reports reaching Earth Command painted an incredible picture. Valori supply lines had been cut so often that soldiers were running low on food. Communication towers were destroyed faster than they could be rebuilt. Entire units were disappearing in the night, killed by farmers who knew the land better than any alien ever could. "We cannot ignore this any longer," said the Earth Council's military advisor during an emergency session. "Humanity has a choice to make. Do we stay hidden and hope the galaxy forgets we exist? Or do we stand with our people?" The vote took 3 hours. Arguments went back and forth. Fear of the Valori clashed with anger over what had happened to Corinth Prime. In the end, the decision came down to a simple question from an old councilwoman. If we do nothing, what kind of species are we? Humanity officially entered the Galactic War. Queen Marathel learned of the Earth decision through intercepted communications. At first, she felt nothing but contempt. Humans were nothing. Insects. What could they possibly do against her empire? Then she reviewed the battle reports from Corinth Prime more carefully. She studied the tactics, the strategies, the sheer persistence of the resistance. And for the first time in centuries, she felt a small seed of doubt. "Bring me information about the human homeworld," she commanded. "Everything in our records." The information was sparse. Earth was a small planet with limited resources. Its population was large, but concentrated on a single world. Its military technology was unremarkable. By every objective measure, humanity was not a threat. But one human had changed everything on Corinth Prime. What would millions of them do? The Queen made her decision. She would crush the resistance personally. She would commit her elite guard, the finest soldiers in her empire, and end this embarrassment once and for all. Then she would turn her attention to Earth. The Battle of Harum Valley began at dawn. 30,000 Valori, elite soldiers, descended on the mountain strongholds. They came with heavy weapons, armored transports, and air support. They came with the full might of an empire that had never lost a war. The resistance met them with everything they had. Sujin led the first defense line. She had once been a colony leader, a politician who solved problems with words and compromise. Now she wore armor made from scrapped vehicles and carried a weapon built by Jinho from stolen parts. "Hold the ridge," she shouted to her fighters. "Give the others time to evacuate the caves." They held for 4 hours. 4 hours of constant attack, of explosions and screaming and death. The Valori pushed forward with mechanical determination, stepping over their own dead to reach the human positions. Sujin knew they could not win. She had known it from the beginning. The purpose of her defense was not victory. It was delay. Every minute she held was another minute for the main force to escape, for the children to reach safety, for Taeyeon to execute his real plan. She triggered her communication device. "Taeyeon, we cannot hold much longer. Are you in position?" His voice came back through static. "Almost. 10 more minutes. I will give you 5. She turned to her remaining fighters. There were maybe 200 left. Most were wounded. All were exhausted. But none of them ran. "One final push," she said. "Make them remember us." They charged down the ridge into the advancing Valori army. It was suicide. It was glorious. It was exactly what Sujin had intended. The confusion gave Taeyeon the time he needed. While the Valori focused on the valley, he led a small team through a tunnel that had taken months to dig. It emerged directly beneath the Queen's command. Ship in orbit. Not beneath. Connected. Jinho had designed the weapon himself. A massive explosive combined with Eunice pheromone disruptor, amplified to affect an entire ship. When it detonated, the command ship's crew would tear itself apart. "Activate the device," Taeyeon ordered. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun. The command ship broke apart, falling toward the planet in flaming pieces. 300,000 Valori died in an instant, their connection to the hive mind severed by the pheromone blast. On the ground, the effect was immediate. Valori soldiers stumbled, confused, lost. Without the command ship's coordination, they became individuals for the first time. And individuals made mistakes. The resistance counterattacked, but victory came with a price. On the ridge, Sujin lay dying among her fallen fighters. She had taken a blade through her chest in the final charge. Around her, the bodies of enemies and friends mixed together in the dirt. Jin Ho found her as the battle ended. He knelt beside her, holding her hand. Did it work? She whispered. Yes, the command ship is destroyed. The Valori are retreating. She smiled, blood staining her teeth. Good, that is good. Her eyes moved to something beyond him. I can see them. My family. They are waiting for me. Rest now, Jinho said. You have earned it. Take care of them, she said. Take care of everyone? Then she was gone. Jinho closed her eyes gently. He stayed there for a long moment, feeling the weight of everything they had lost. Then he stood and walked back toward the caves. There was still work to do. In the aftermath of the battle, Jinho led a team to secure the fallen command ship's wreckage. They searched for technology, weapons, anything useful. What he found instead changed everything. A data core, intact, containing the Queen's entire strategic database. He brought it back to Yuna, who spent 3 days decoding it. What she found made her hands shake. Father, she said, look at this. The database contained designs for the Valori hive mind network. Not just how it worked, but how to disrupt it. With this information, they could build a weapon that affected not one ship, not one planet, but an entire star system. They could break the Queen's control over millions of soldiers at once. Jinho understood immediately. Can you build it? Not here. Not with what we have. But on Earth, with proper facilities. He nodded slowly. Then we need to get this information home. Before he could plan further, new ships appeared in orbit. Human ships. The first Earth fleet had arrived. Admiral Yunji's face appeared on every screen in the resistance camps. She was a small woman with cold eyes and a voice like steel. People of Corinth Prime, she said. Humanity has heard your cry. We have seen what you accomplished against impossible odds. And we have come to finish what you started. She paused, her expression hardening. To the Valori Empire, I say this. You touched our people. You killed our children. You thought we were weak because we are small and young. You were wrong. We are coming for you. And we will not stop until you understand exactly how dangerous humans can be. The fleet began landing troops. Fresh soldiers with modern weapons. Engineers with advanced equipment. Doctors with medicine and supplies. Help had finally arrived, but Jinho barely noticed. He was sitting in his quarters, holding the data chip that contained the key to ending the war. Beside him lay a bandage soaked in his own blood. During the battle, he had taken a wound that he had hidden from everyone. It was deep. It was infected. And he knew he would not survive it. He called Minsu to him. His grandson entered, saw the wound, and froze. Grandfather, listen to me, Jinho said. This chip must reach Earth. Yuna will explain what it contains. You must protect it, Minsu. You must make sure it gets to the people who can use it. You can bring it yourself. The fleet has doctors. The doctors cannot help me. Jinho touched his grandson's face. I am proud of you. You grew into a warrior when you should have been a child. I am sorry for that. But I am also grateful. You gave us hope when we had none. Minsu was crying now. Please, do not leave me. I will never leave you. Jinho pressed the chip into Minsu's hand. I will be with you always. In every battle you fight. In every life you save. In every memory you keep. That is what it means to be human, Minsu. We die, but we are never truly gone. He closed his eyes. Minsu held his grandfather's body for a long time. Then he stood, wiped his tears, and walked out to find Taeyun. There was a war to win, and his grandfather's final gift would make sure they won it. The war lasted 3 years. What began on Corinth Prime spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Human fleets appeared in system after system, bringing weapons, soldiers, and something far more dangerous. A new way of fighting. Admiral Yunji did not wage war the way the Valori expected. She did not seek grand battles or glorious victories. She sought pain. Every Valori supply line was targeted. Every communication relay was destroyed. Every breeding world was threatened. For every colony they burned, she told her officers, we burn 3 breeding worlds. Not to exterminate them. Extinction is too kind. We burn them to teach them fear. The Valori Empire had never experienced fear. For 1,000 years, they had been the predators. Now, suddenly, they were prey. Yuna's weapon changed everything. Built from Jinho's stolen data, it was a massive pheromone disruptor that could affect an entire star system. When deployed, it shattered the hive mind connection across billions of soldiers simultaneously. The first test was devastating. A Valori fleet of 200 ships descended on a human colony. Before they could attack, Yuna's weapon activated. The fleet tore itself apart. Ships fired on each other. Soldiers killed their own commanders. Within hours, only wreckage remained. It works, Yuna reported to Admiral Yunji, but it takes time to recharge. We can use it once per month at most. Then we use it wisely, Yunji replied, and we make every use count. The human advance was relentless. Colony after colony was liberated. Species that had been conquered centuries ago rose up against their weakened oppressors. The Galactic Coalition, which had abandoned Corinth Prime to its fate, now rushed to ally with humanity. Where were you when our people were dying? Admiral Yunji asked their ambassadors coldly. We did not think you could win, they admitted. Remember that. Remember that we won without you. And never forget that we remember who stood with us and who did not. Taeyun led the ground forces. The colonists of Corinth Prime fought alongside him in every battle. Farmers who had become the most feared soldiers in the galaxy. They called themselves the First Resistance, and their reputation terrified the enemy. Minsu was among them. He was 17 now, tall and hard-eyed. 3 years of war had burned away everything soft. He killed without hesitation, fought without mercy, and remembered without forgetting. He carried his grandfather's memory like a weapon. Every Valori he killed was revenge for Jinho. Every victory was a tribute to the old man who had refused to surrender. Queen Mirathel watched her empire crumble from her throne world. System after system fell silent. Fleets were destroyed. Breeding worlds were burned. For the first time in her 1,000-year reign, she faced the possibility of defeat. How? She demanded of her remaining advisors. How did this happen? They are insects. Their lives last barely a century. How did they break my empire? No one could answer her. The Valori had no concept for what humans were. They had evolved to dominate, to conquer, to absorb. They had never encountered a species that refused to be absorbed. A species that would rather die fighting than live in submission. The final battle took place above the Queen's throne world. The human fleet arrived in waves. Hundreds of ships carrying the survivors of a dozen liberated planets. Corinth. Prime veterans stood beside soldiers from Earth. Species that had once been enemies now fought side by side against their common oppressor. Admiral, Yunji commanded from her flagship. All ships, advance. Today we end 1,000 years of darkness. The battle raged for 18 hours. Ships burned and fell. Lives were spent like currency. But slowly, steadily, the human alliance pushed forward. Taihan led the ground assault personally. His team landed on the throne world's surface while the fleet battle raged above. Their target was the Queen's Palace, a massive structure that had stood for millennia. The fighting on the ground was brutal. Valori soldiers fought with the desperation of creatures facing extinction. But the humans fought harder. They had come too far, lost too much, to fail now. Minsu was at Taiyan's side when they breached the palace doors. Together, they moved through hallways of alien architecture, killing everything in their path. Behind them came 100 veterans of Corinth Prime, farmers who had learned to be warriors. They found Queen Mirathel in her throne room. She was ancient, her body kept alive by technology and stolen life force. But her eyes were still sharp, still filled with pride despite her crumbling empire. "So," she said as Taiyan entered, "you are the human who started all this." Taiyan stopped before her throne. His weapon was raised, but he did not fire. "I am one human. One single human destroyed everything I built." She studied him like a scientist studying an unusual specimen. "Tell me why. Your lives are so short. You will be dead in decades, regardless of what happens here. Why do you fight so hard for people you will barely know?" Taiyan was silent for a moment. Behind him, Minsu and the others waited. "Because we remember," he said finally. "Every loss, every name, every injustice. Humans remember forever. Our lives are short, but our memories are eternal. We write them in books. We carve them in stone. We pass them from generation to generation until the universe itself forgets." He stepped closer to the throne. "You killed our people. You thought we would forget. You thought we would move on, accept our losses, become just another conquered species in your collection. But we do not forget. We never forget. And we never, ever forgive." The Queen's expression changed. For the first time in 1,000 years, she looked afraid. "What will you do to us?" Tang lowered his weapon. "We will not exterminate you. That would make us no better than you. Instead, we will contain you. We will monitor you. We will ensure that you never threaten another species again. And every generation, we will tell our children what you did. We will keep your crimes alive in memory forever. That is your punishment. Not death, memory." The palace fell. The Queen was taken prisoner. And across the galaxy, the Valori Empire collapsed. 10 years later, Minsu stood before a memorial on Corinth Prime. The wall stretched for nearly a kilometer, covered in names. Thousands of names. Everyone who had died in the invasion and the war that followed. His grandfather's name was there. Sujin's name. Dongwu's name. Friends he had fought beside. Strangers he had never met. He was 27 now. A leader in the new planetary government. The boy who had crawled through ventilation shafts to save children had become a man who helped build a new civilization from the ashes of the old. Beside him stood Taiyan, older now, gray appearing in his hair. The captain who had defied orders to save a single colony had become the most celebrated human in the galaxy. But today, he was just a man visiting the graves of friends. "Do you ever regret it?" Minsu asked. "Coming here, starting all of this." Taiyan considered the question. Behind them, the rebuilt city rose against the sky. Children played in parks that had once been battlefields. Families gathered for meals in homes built on the ruins of processing centers. "No," he said. "I do not regret it. We lost much, but we also gained something. We showed the galaxy what humans are, what we can do when our people are threatened. And what are we? Tan smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. We are the species that does not give up. We are the species that remembers. We are the species that will travel across the stars, defy every law of probability, sacrifice everything we have for people we have never met, because they are our people. And that is what being human means. He put his hand on Minsu's shoulder. The galaxy asked why humans are dangerous. It is not our weapons. It is not our ships. It is not even our stubbornness or our cruelty. He looked at the names on the wall. Thousands of ordinary people who had become heroes. It is that when you hurt one of us, all of us come. Every human, every ship, every weapon. We come from across the galaxy, and we do not stop until the debt is paid. The Queen learned that lesson. The galaxy learned that lesson. And anyone who threatens humanity in the future will learn it too. Minsu nodded slowly. He reached out and touched his grandfather's name on the wall. We remember, he said softly. We always remember. Above them, the sky was clear and blue. Ships passed overhead, carrying people and goods between worlds. The war was over. Peace had come. But the memory remained, carved in stone and steel, passed from generation to generation. The galaxy had learned what humans were. They would not forget.